Hey, welcome to Mary Wieden You. So glad to have you along with us today. Well, now let's see. It's day number 4 for one activity and day 2 for another activity. The other activity, somebody won a contest last week for knowing what day 2 is, 2 days away from now. Of course, is turn our clocks back. I wait until Sunday. I wait till Sunday morning, then I wake up at 8 o'clock. No, it's not 8 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. Yay, get that whole extra hour. And then I do my clocks like that. You know, when it's time to fall back. When it's time to go forward, I do that on Saturdays. And this is Dr. Glenn Antizzo listening to this insanity here.
Not insane at all.
But, you know, give yourself a break, you know, and wait till Sunday morning you wake up, because you don't want to get to someplace early. And I can't imagine anybody ever getting up in the middle of the night and go, oh, it's time to turn the clocks back. People do it before they go to bed. But anyway, so we have that to look forward to. But, oh, man, 4 days from now. You getting nervous, Dr. Glenn? And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be back. And, this is absolutely, you know, working at a frenetic pace, yes. Being bombarded with polls, trying to sort out the truth from the nonsense. Yeah, no, it's been, I'm really looking forward to taking a bit of a vacation once we get to like Thanksgiving, so I can calm down from all of this.
Well, you're not going to have time. Nobody will have time, because then after the election, which who knows when it'll get settled. Do you think we'll know next Tuesday night who the president will be?
No, not Tuesday night. Although I think you'll have a good clue, and that good clue is going to be, you know, which way does Pennsylvania break? I think, you know, really? Pennsylvania being in the Eastern time zone, you know, and it's got 19 electoral votes that both sides absolutely need. Trump's path to victory, the most likely path, goes through Pennsylvania. He's going to need those electoral votes. If it breaks for him, I think you'll know. But the thing is, though, with so many people voting absentee and states having different standards for how they do it, some will count before, some wait until after the polls close. And then, of course, you know, if it's a close race, then you got to, you know, do absentee ballots. And, you know, the question is, there's been a question, I think the courts are starting to sort this out now, whether the ballots have to be there by Election Day or whether they have to be postmarked by Election Day.
And what are we in Mississippi? Are we postmarked?
That is a good question. I don't know. I know the only thing I really know about Mississippi, and I think they're actually loosening this, was that you had to have an excuse for why you weren't going to be there on Election Day.
Right, for absentee voting.
Right.
But, well, the other thing that's been so big is early voting, not just the mail-in votes, but the early voting. And Trump has been very big on that, figuring apparently that if you early vote, you will not be subject to shenanigans. Would be about the best word to say.
Right.
I've been hearing that word lately.
Well, yeah, and speaking of shenanigans, I mean, that's a problem. The reason that, you know, the Trump claims of election, you know, tampering.
Malfeasance.
Actually, that's the word I was going to use. I just couldn't bring it up fast enough. It was that, of course, in DeKalb County, Georgia, you may remember, for those of you who don't know, DeKalb County, Atlanta is actually in 2 counties. The majority of it is in Fulton, but not all of Fulton is Atlanta. And then the other small stump of it is in DeKalb County, which is just east of Fulton. And while the majority of the county is suburban, there is a part of it that's Atlanta. Anyway, make a long story short, what you may remember last time was that they were counting the ballots, and when they shut down the counting operations at about 2 o'clock in the morning, Trump was ahead.
Yes.
And they said, okay, well, we'll resume. I think it was like at 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. And when they came back, Biden shot ahead, and a lot of people thought, what? You're
exactly.
Joking.
Yeah, I was one of those. Yeah.
I think, you know, again, knowing the area, having lived there for a few years, I know that area is heavily Democratic, so it wasn't a total surprise to me. But it does open the door to people's suspicions and people's worry that, you know what, maybe there is a little something unsavory going on here. It's clear that there are people, not everybody, but there are people on the left who are fanatically opposed to Trump getting into office.
Oh, tell me about it. It's awful.
And you know, they paint these dark visions that it's 1938 in Germany.
Disgusting. You've seen the video.
Yeah, look,
have you seen the video?
I have more confidence in the American people than that. You know, look, even if we had somebody who had authoritarian tendencies, I don't think that anybody would obey an order to wipe out a village of people or you know shut down the New York Times or whatever. I just don't believe that.
By the way, he has sued CBS over the editing of the Kamala Harris interview, where she stumbled all over the place, and then they re-edited with the question to another, the answer to another question, but it sounded better for what they wanted it. And so he sued on Thursday. He sued CBS, and all they said back was, "Well, we always have the ability to cut things down to suit time purposes." Well, I know that. I've done that a bunch of times. I worked in TV. I know what that's like. You edit somebody for time purposes, but you don't edit somebody for content purposes. For God's sake,
you can't rearrange the truth.
That's disgusting.
This is sounding like Winston Smith's office in the book 1984, where his job is to cut out the news. He takes old news stories, and when somebody's fallen out of favor with the party, he cuts them out of the story, rewrites the story, and reinserts it back into the newspaper to make them non-people. That's what this starts to sound like. And then, of course, you have the press office at the White House.
Oh, the stenographer thing?
Yeah.
Yes. What a president says is supposed to go in the record, presidential papers or records, or not congressional records necessarily, I don't think, is it? But, yeah.
No, it wouldn't be the congressional records.
The stenos are being told to change it.
Yeah.
And they're saying no. And I don't know if has it gone in yet with the original version of You're All Garbage. Oh, by the way, speaking of garbage, Lance, I'm ready to display what a well-dressed Lady Garbage will wear. She will wear. I showed it to you, right? She will wear this particular outfit that I have put together. And it can be worn for casual occasions, formal occasions, go to sporting, whatever you want to see, right?
You got to give me a minute on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's on my Twitter X page, by the way, which is at Mary Wieden, W-I-E. Remember, I before E. It's on there, so you can see that, too, if you want to have your own copy.
See, I like that you came up with the term Lady Garbage. Because that sounds like
that's it.
There's going to be some perfume that's going to come out called Lady Garbage. Trust me, it's coming.
So that means since we're both talking, all three of us are talking about it, that means we get to copyright it. So that means we can make some money off this deal. I mean, that's what it's all about. But you can't do that. You can't just, CBS can't do that. You can't just change what the president he meant to say and tell me what you said.
Right. Well, I'm just looking at his quote right here, and he says, and this is a quote. Well. And the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rico that I know. It was Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. Sounds like you just moved Puerto Rico about 1,200 miles north. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage, here's the key line. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. Now, look, it's pretty clear by the sentence, because the sentence doesn't really grammatically make sense, although we are talking about Biden here. It doesn't really grammatically make sense if you put the apostrophe in. It's pretty clear to me. I got in shall we say, a spirited discussion with a colleague about this, and he says, well, how do you pronounce an apostrophe? Well, the thing is, look at the context of the rest of the sentence, not just that word. It is very clear, and it fits into a pattern of calling people a bucket of deplorables.
Basket of deplorables.
Basket of deplorables, and some of the other stuff that's being said, and of course, there's some of the vile remarks made by Mark Cuban.
Oh.
Look, I love Puerto Rico. I went there on my honeymoon. They're great people. I've enjoyed the hospitality. My wife and I are already saving up our Hilton points to go back. However, let me say this, that, the guy that said that, I do not like stand-up comedy. I don't enjoy it that much. There may be one or two stand-up comedians I like. And the particular type of stand-up comedy I don't like is called roast comedy, where you're basically insulting somebody. This guy is a roast comic. He's not, they keep saying he's a Trump supporter. He's a hired comedian who came in to warm up the crowd. And this guy tells these kind of jokes. This is the same guy, my students inform me that this is the same guy who roasted Tom Brady. And I remember watching the Tom Brady roast and absolutely cringing by a few things that he said about Brady's, I think, wife and kids. But that's what happens at a roast. A celebrity roast. If you go back to the 60s and you see the old Dean Martin roast, they were all sort of like that. Maybe not as nasty as what this guy was saying, but that's what a roast comedian does. I'm not saying I endorse the remarks. I don't. I love Puerto Rico.
Did you see it? Actually, did you see it Sunday when he said this? Because I think there's only one way to see it. I think I'm going to tell the audience how to do this. Lance, did you see it?
Yeah, and Haley Barber mentioned it yesterday in an interview that it was a situation where the comedian Hinchcliffe did not actually clear that with the campaign.
Apparently,
it just happened.
Well, but there were a lot of things that, okay, and I'm going to tell the audience how you can see all of these rallies unadulterated. You can see them, the whole thing from beginning to end through Right Side Broadcasting Network, RSBN. So Sunday morning, or whenever it was on Sunday, I got my TV ready. And so I was doing things in and out of my house, And I come down the hall, and I thought I heard this guy dropping some F-bombs, and I thought, what is that? I mean, this is not an F-bomb venue. That's not for this. And I walked past and went outside. And then I came back in, and they were on to somebody else, and it was a wonderful thing. By the way, the whole, But, okay, so RSBN, in order to see all of these rallies, folks, and I do, and I have a friend who tells me when they are, you can find it on their website, but it's kind of obscure. But I've seen so many of them. RSBN, here, write this down someplace. You would do to find it on your cell phone, or you can get on your TV. On your cell phone, you just do a search for Right Side Broadcasting Network. Right. And then your phone will show you a bunch of their hits where you can go. You can see the whole thing on there. If you're going to watch it on TV, you just have to have a smart TV with a microphone. And what you do is you go, turn on your TV, get on something, and then you say your microphone, YouTube. First of all, you got to go to YouTube. So, YouTube, and then it goes to YouTube. And then when you get there, then you say Right Side Broadcasting Network. Now, you may get an alphabet, you may get all kinds of stuff. Just keep hitting it and just keep saying Right Side Broadcasting Network. And then you'll find a whole bank, maybe 2 banks of all of these rallies. You can see all the rallies there if you want to watch them all. And you got to watch on the bottom where it says if it's from 2 days ago, 1 day ago, 12 days ago, whatever. But you want to see something that will say in 1 hour or something today's date on there. It took me 10 minutes last night to get to wherever he was in the evening. I can't remember now. It was in Las Vegas. It was in Nevada, someplace in Nevada, I guess it was. So, but then you click on that, and you should get it right away. You might get some commercials, and then you have to go Right Side Broadcasting. You may have to do that a few times, but you can get there, and you can get to whatever the thing is that you're looking for. They do have their own narrators. Sometimes they have to vamp for a couple hours because who could they be waiting for? But you can see a lot of times, like last night, you could see the plane landing. Everybody's all getting a thrill over that. You can see everybody come off the plane, and you can see the president coming off the plane and stuff like that. But you see the whole thing in its entirety. And that's how I just left it on my TV all day long because that was the whole thing was going all day. But yeah, one guy makes some obscene stupidity thing, and then we go on for a whole week.
And again, that guy was a hired comedian. He's not part of the campaign. He's a comedian that was hired to warm up the crowd. By the way, I read something. An NBC producer was at a nightclub the night before when he tried out that joke, and it bombed just as badly at the nightclub. However, the Biden remark was made by the sitting president of the United States, who you would consider is one of the primary surrogates for the Democratic candidate for office. There is a qualitative difference between some moron comedian and the president of the United States. And then, of course, another surrogate, Mark Cuban, when we can get into that remark later, made even more egregious remarks, and he really stepped in it yesterday.
What do you think about just a thought, you almost have to be thankful that Biden said what he said based upon what Tony said, because had you not heard Biden say that, you would have no idea how they really feel about you. Yeah. And they being the left, how they feel about the right. And then trying to retract that and step it back and saying there was supposed to be an apostrophe in there and all that. And you're like, what? You're going to make it possessive? It didn't make any sense.
We heard what we heard.
Yeah, everybody heard the same thing. But again, it was a masterful troll job if that was the goal, was to get the Dems to blow their top. Because it did. It really, it was a lot of things popping out there for a week.
Well, they know that, obviously Latinos are a key constituency in this election. And as much as we've seen a shift among African-American males towards Trump, it's been even more pronounced with Hispanics who are, largely Catholic, largely more socially conservative, very family-oriented, very entrepreneurial, very hardworking, and very open to splitting their vote. In the 2000 election, I think Bush got something like 40 to 45% of the Hispanic vote.
Well, another thing that I saw the other day from watching these rallies, because I do spend a little bit of time watching him. He was, I don't know where he was, someplace, and it was all Hispanics. and he might have been in New Mexico. Maybe he was in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And he asked, he said, by the way, he said, do you prefer to be called Latinos or Hispanics? Latinos, real quiet. Hispanics, yay, we'll be. So, okay, they're Hispanics. And I thought that was really good. And it was a large number of them. Yeah, and I'm sure they realize that they're being screwed by this immigration thing, just like everybody else is, because people are looking at them like, well, you must be one of them. No, they're not. And they must be highly, highly offended at what is happening here.
By the way, let me just revise and extend my remarks. I said the 2000 election. I think actually it was the earlier governor's race that Bush had where he picked that up, and that was in Texas, not nationally. But I think he did really well nationally as well in the 2000 election.
Well, George P., who would be his nephew, I guess it was.
Yes,
he is. He's half Hispanic, I guess, because his mother was
Jeb's son, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Hey, one question for both of y'all. What do you think? I mean, I see a lot of oddities in the world today, things that didn't used to happen. And it seems that maybe Americans in general, are getting a little fed up with allowing a selected class of people to break the law consistently, jumping borders, flash mobs, all this stuff that you're seeing, criminal behavior. But you're starting, I think, do you believe that has a lasting impact over time? Will Americans see that? Hey, why do I follow the rules every day if they don't have to? Why do I pay my taxes if they don't have to?
Yeah.
Why is that going to have a lot? I mean, you're a professor of political science and history. How long does it take to see that? Because I feel like I'm seeing that in just basic things that happen every day. Folks don't seem to be as nice. There's not as much smiling, more red light running and bright lighting and left lane and people on phones and just a lot of craziness. At times, you go, wow, what happened? Well, if you look at, we're allowing illegals to break the law, come here, usurp the value that you work so hard for and pay your taxes on, but yet, and this is happening all over the country.
I think that's part of the reason why the minority vote may, it's not going to be majority Trump, but I think that the reason that you see it sort of breaking that way a bit more is because, you've got a lot of black families who play by the rules, pay their taxes. They want their kids to have, the opportunities that the rest of America has, and they don't like the idea that people are jumping the line, getting into this country. And then you've got Hispanics who played by the rules, observed all the immigration procedures, and now they're watching other people. And it's not people necessarily from Latin America. You've got people coming from all over the world, and then using places like Nicaragua as a conduit to get here.
It's a break. We'll be back. Well, we were having this, we were just talking about the coverage, the news coverage, and it's abominable. It is just disgusting, all of it. MSNBC should be thrown off the air for what they did the other day. I didn't see the story because I can't watch those people. I can't watch them. I cannot watch The View and that garbage. They talk about garbage now. That's garbage. I cannot watch that. And I'm also very glad that I'm not doing news right now because I would have to sit there and listen to whatever my network had to say about things. Because, ABC's, they're always, it's unfounded, all these claims. Oh, really? But you let these people get away with murder. These other people get away with murder. And I was telling Dr. Antizzo that a few weeks ago, Trump went to the NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. Harris was too busy. She was too busy to attend. She should have, but that's okay. He did it, and that's fine. And so he walks in. There were 3 black females sitting on the stage. The first one was Rachel Scott from ABC. The middle person, I don't know who that was. And the last person was Harris Faulkner from Fox, who's very, very fair, very dignified and fair. Well, Rachel Scott was the first one. And as soon as Trump sits down, she just Trump just lit into him. I was like, well, what about this? What about that? And he's like, well, maybe you would have thought maybe you'd say welcome or something, glad to have you with us or something like that. But inasmuch as you didn't, blah, 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 blah. And so she gets assigned to cover his campaign. She should not cover his campaign at all. She has no business covering his campaign. She can't stand the guy, and all she does, she's nasty about Trump to him and about him all the time. That is not right. I mean, that's not how it should be, folks. But with the networks, that's okay. They get away with all this kind of murder, and they're so biased. My God, when Bert was alive, and he's been gone 8 years, and he was appalled by the bias back then. It's been going on for a lot of years, but, he'd be really apoplectic by now. This is disgusting.
We are long past the days of Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite.
Well, who was a socialist, by the way. Did you know that?
Cronkite?
Yes, I didn't know this till recently.
Did not know that.
I heard this within the last couple of years. I guess he hid it, but he was a socialist. We'll have to look. We'll have to Google that one.
But I mean, even if he was, I mean that just shows how objective the news was. A lot more, a lot more reliable.
And then MSNBC, I understand the other day they spliced in some stuff from 1939 Nazi march and Nazi people with this thing at Madison Square Garden, which was a wonderful thing. It was terrific, except for that one guy. All the rest of them were fine. The whole day, it was a whole day of stuff. And that RSBN, by the way, is what I kept it on. No commercials in there, by the way. RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network, that I told you about earlier, doesn't have any commercials. But so MSNBC runs. How does MSNBC stay on the air with garbage like that? You don't put Hitler marches in there, for God's sake.
Well, guess they got a lot of viewers on the East Coast and West Coast cities.
That must be the only place, because Fox News dominates everybody, and they do balance. It's a bunch of right-wing kooks. No, it's not a bunch of right-wing kooks at all. There are some people who are more right than others, but they do balance it a lot. And I get tired of seeing some of their people on there, like Ro Khanna. I'm tired of seeing him. There's other people, but they do a lot of other people, and I think a lot of the liberal people understand that it's right to go on Fox because you're going to get an audience.
Right.
They have the biggest audience of all these other people. How they stay in business, I don't know. But anyway, back to it. It's been a vicious, really more so vicious campaign, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the rhetoric is getting overheated, but you know what? That may come back to bite her. Look, if things are as good as she and the president say they are, then they should play those cards. Hey, look, we got off to a rough start, but we had to. I'm just going to make their defense for them just for a second to show what they could have said.
Right.
Look, things got off to a rough start, but we were coming out of a pandemic. The economy was still flat. We needed to engage in some spending, so that's why we had the Inflation Reduction Act, and that's why we had the additional stimulus check, because we needed to do this. And ever since then, we've gotten inflation down. We know you're still suffering, but inflation at least now is under control. Job numbers seem to be better. They could make those claims, and it would sound like at least that they were making some sort of a pitch that would appeal to people, but I think this election is going to be won and lost on kitchen table issues.
Yes.
And people remember what it was like under Trump.
Well, I will never understand why they shut down mostly shut down the petroleum industry, because this is a petroleum-oriented society, number one. Most things that we have petroleum in them. These headsets that we're wearing, your glasses that you're wearing, my shirt that I'm wearing, my slacks, my shoes, my underwear, yours too. I mean, yours too. If there's any elastic in there, and your jacket and your shirt, it's in everything. It's in our toothpaste, for God's sake. Did you know that?
No,
it's in everything. There are 60,000 products, and I've gotten this over the years from people. The only person who has ever really enunciated and kept it going, talking about it, is Judge Jeanine Pirro, and she'll sit there and she'll tell you that kind of stuff, and it's the truth. But we had to do that because whatever, and inflation is down 2% this year because you know what? But 4 years ago, that item that you're buying cost 30% more than you've been paying. So now it's down. Yeah, it's down to 28%.
Right.
That kind of stuff. That's the kind of lies and foolishness that goes on. And I will never understand how this woman is getting these numbers. I don't understand how it's so close. These numbers in these polls. These polls would be like, I've been doing this for years with Trump. Here's how I do polls and these things. Hey, Lance, who are you going to vote for? Oh, you're going to vote for Harris? Well, I'll put you down for Harris today. Say, Dr. Antizzo, who are you voting for today? Oh, you want to vote for her? Oh, okay. I'll vote for Trump. Oh, it's 2-1. 2-1 against Trump. That's how they do it, in my opinion. It's just...
Well, one of the things that has stood out to me is obviously as the left has taken the side of the Palestinians more, you've heard them demonize the right as Nazis. So in order to get the Jews to vote for Democrats, you have to make the Jews feel like the right are a bunch of crazy right Nazis because you have chosen to support Palestine.
And Lance, you bring up a great point. We might not even be having an election this close had she chosen a vice presidential candidate better.
Oh, yeah.
I think there is no disputing that Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, is a really sharp guy, very articulate.
He's a lot better than Spirit Fingers and Jazz Hands.
Or Matt Foley.
And I think that she would be doing a lot better. And in a way, maybe the ticket could have played good cop, bad cop when it came to issues relating to the Middle East, because you'd have Shapiro there, reassuring people that the administration is not going to go off the deep end, even if they take a more, pro-Palestinian position, than maybe previous administrations. And they gave up that opportunity. By the way, I'm impressed enough with Shapiro that I have no doubt in my mind he's the 2028 leader.
Well, you would have to think that if you knew you couldn't win this election, why would you go out and put your name in it after such a terrible 4 years under Biden, after all the divisiveness, all the failed policies and all that? If you're Shapiro, why would you do this? Why wouldn't you allow them to run out the worst ticket possible? Hopefully they get beat, and then you look like a genius 4 years from now.
Yeah.
And by the way, so that leads us into that discussion that you also want to get into this morning, is World War III. It is a possibility. I mean, I know you got a page of notes on that one too, because it's getting worse over there.
Yeah, no, and right now it's starting to look like a multi-front war.
Yeah.
To bring people up to speed, you may remember that Israel, of course, was attacked on October 7th of last year. They've had an ongoing war with Hamas. Hezbollah. But Hamas and Hezbollah are both Iran-backed terrorist groups. Hamas is a Sunni group that represents Palestinians in Gaza. Hezbollah is a Shiite group, which is more religiously related directly to the regime in Iran. And they started joining in the fight by shooting missiles into northern Israel, and the Israeli populace that lives in the border regions had to evacuate from the areas. Anyway, once they got Hamas on the ropes, the Israelis decided, okay, well, now it's probably time to go after Hezbollah because we can't take much more of this. And so they took out the leader of both organizations, actually. But I think that for the Iranians, losing the leader of Hezbollah, who is sort of almost their combat arm in that part of the Middle East, Hezbollah doesn't just fight for the Iranian position in Lebanon. They also are actually sending troops over into Syria to help out Assad hang on to power. Anyway, make a long story as short as I possibly can. The Israelis really have done a number on Hezbollah and Hamas, and especially when Hezbollah was decapitated, no pun intended. The Iranians for the first time. Well, I shouldn't say for the first. I guess it was for the first time. Directly attacked Israel, and the Israelis, responded. And now the Iranians attacked again, and now this time the Israelis said, "Okay, we're not hitting your proxies. This time we're hitting your territory to make you feel some pain." But the Israelis were very careful. The Biden administration told them, as they often tell our allies, fight, but fight with one arm tied behind your back. Don't do anything that's going to provoke them too much and escalate the situation, even though this country that you're hitting represents an existential threat. Don't hit the nuclear facilities. Don't hit the oil infrastructure that they get the money from. Just hit other stuff. So the Israelis did have well-planned, well-thought-out surgical attacks on the Iranian air defense system.
Yes.
And they basically took it out. And the Iranians are humiliated because, now they are naked.
Mouse.
Now
Look what they
did. And so they are now talking, the Iranians, Israeli intelligence has put out, and Axios is reporting, is that the Iranians are preparing a massive counterstrike against Israel, and it may come this weekend before the election. Intel sources say that the attack would come, however, from Iranian-backed proxies in Iraq. The idea is, well, hey, we didn't shoot the missiles, these people over here in Iraq did. But you know darn well who's ordering this, who's financing this, and whose strategy is being played out by this.
How do they get away with this, Doc? I mean, how are you allowing a country to hire 5 proxy militaries to cause trouble all over the world, blow up ships, disrupt everything possible, fly dune buggies over walls, and hijacked kids watching and enjoying a music festival? Why are they allowed to act this way when no one else on the planet would be given that kind of...
Because unlike earlier presidents like Reagan, we're absolutely terrified of, what will they do next? You got the dynamic all wrong. They should be worried about what we or the Israelis will do next.
And they seem to not be.
Well, and we have a president who dares to tell the Israelis how to prosecute a war. You don't tell Israel how to prosecute a war. Just step aside, let them take care of business. They know what to do. They've been doing it for 50 years or however long they've been, 60 or whatever, however many years, longer than that.
It's their people. I think I'm not certain about this, but I'm reasonably certain there are more Jews living outside of Israel than living inside of Israel. Probably. It's a small country, both in terms of area and population. They are the one democratic success story in the Middle East. And you know what? Lebanon maybe could be the next success story if groups like Hezbollah would just get out of the way. They are not just a militia. They are also a political party that is very influential and powerful in the Lebanese government. And I think that they are holding back the Lebanese people.
You know what was surprising the other day? This is another thing that I saw where Trump was in Michigan, I guess it was, and a bunch of imams. You walk past my TV, and there's some imams who support him. They said, "We want nothing but peace. We want peace." And then the mayor of Dearborn Heights, you've heard of Dearborn, where Ford Motor Company is. So Dearborn Heights is right there. That mayor was originally born in somewhere over there, Iran maybe, and he became an American citizen, did the Marines, became a mayor. He is another Islamic person who supports Trump. And the mayor of Hamtramck, which is a city within the city in Detroit, used to be all Polish. Now it's all Israeli, or not Israelis, but it's all Arab. It's Arabic. Yes, that mayor who wasn't there, though, that mayor has supported Trump, too. They want peace. And let's have more people hear about that. Let's hear about that.
And keep in mind, remember, who got peace in the Middle East? Trump got peace for Israel with 4 countries as part of the Abraham Accords. Bahrain, UAE, Sudan, and Morocco.
We'll be right back. Is with us. I said to my people when I sent in a memo yesterday that we were going to have him, we were going to set a new speed limit because we're flying. We're absolutely flying through this. But so we're talking about the Middle East.
Right.
And Trump has said, I'm going to end that thing, right away. Is he? I mean, it's gotten a little more complicated, I think, since he said that.
Let me make a point about the Middle East, if you don't mind.
Please.
We're talking about peace, and look, there have been 3 major peace accords. In 1979, building on the work Henry Kissinger had done during the Nixon and Ford administrations with his shuttle diplomacy, Jimmy Carter got the Camp David Accords, which you got to give Carter his props.
Sure.
He got peace for the first time between Israel and probably the most influential and at the same time dangerous adversary that Israel had. And Israel and Egypt have had a somewhat, sometimes uneasy, but generally speaking, amicable relationship for the last 30, 40 years. Then, after the Persian Gulf War, in 1994, Jordan concluded peace with Israel. And so now Israel had peace on 2 fronts. And then Trump, in 2017, has the Abraham Accords. Which
I never understood what that is.
Basically, it is 4 Arab nations, 2 in Africa, 2 on the Arabian Peninsula, that have made peace with Israel, officially recognize Israel's right to exist, have diplomatic relations, and I presume trade relations as well. And those are the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. Now, notice, especially in the last 2 cases, in the 94 case with Jordan and with the Abraham Accords, it's when the United States is projecting strength. It's then that peace is made in the Middle East. It says, blessed are the peacemakers. Well, the peace does come through strength. And, I say what you want about Trump, but there's no arguing that he got those accords. And before October 7th, Israel, people listening on the radio can't see how close my fingers are, but they're almost touching each other.
They can see it online.
Right.
You can see it.
Basically, not Trump, but the United States, and I'll give Biden props on this, we're getting close to a peace settlement with Saudi Arabia. And trust me when I say this, those 4, particularly the 2 in the Persian Gulf, would never have been able to conclude peace if they hadn't gotten a wink and a nod from Saudi Arabia. But we were getting close. And then, because of what happened on October 7th, that scuttled everything. And unfortunately, I don't think this administration is up to doing what needs to be done to get the Saudis necessarily back to the table. I think, Trump, whether you like him or not, does have a track record of making peace in the Middle East. And I think, you see sort of the results of that Abraham Accords. When Israel was attacked the first time by the Iranians with that missile attack a few months ago, it was not just Israel's missile defense system. Other countries in the region responded as well. I believe the Jordanians and the UAE actually took actions to take out some of the missiles before they could even get anywhere near Israel. Wow. That's what American diplomacy can do when it is skillfully applied by people who know what they're doing and aren't, living Groundhog's Day 365 days a year where they're scared of their own shadow.
Yeah, I don't think these people have a clue. They're not interested. They're just not interested in it. They don't know what to do. They don't have the people to do it. I don't know what Mr. Little Blinken and Nod, Winkin, Blinken and Nod, little man does before he got this job. He didn't know what he's doing. They send him over there to do something. They doesn't know. None of these people know what they're doing. They don't have a clue, and they don't like Israel, which is amazing. And by the way, Trump has never been asked, what do you plan to do about anti-Semitism in this country? Because it's getting out of control. It's out of control again. College started up again. A lot of all stuff going on still. And that's disgusting, and and I don't think the Biden people give a rat's damn about it.
Well, and just to show again how incompetent they were in handling things, you've got a war going on in Ukraine that was all but the Russians were all but invited in by the Biden administration. Biden said, well, if it's a minor incursion, no big deal.
Yeah.
Well, then you're giving them a green light. You should have said no, not. You should have said about that. About the same thing that he said about NATO. Not one more inch. You already took what you took in 2014. That's between you and them, but not an inch further than that. Or we do supply the weapons. I'm not even saying that we have to put boots on the ground. We don't. But we can give them the ability to defend themselves. It's an imperfect government. I get that. People who make the point that that Ukraine has a problem with corruption, I get the point. You are absolutely right. But it's the difference between, an authoritarian government bent on regional domination like the Russians and a government that, though imperfect, has a chance at democracy like Ukraine. And with the North Koreans now intervening to help their fellow tyrant, they've already committed about 12,000 troops. Some are training in the Russian Far East right now, but there are reports that 8,000 of them have already been deployed on the Ukraine, on occupied Ukrainian territory in the Kursk region, and these guys are going to see combat action pretty soon. Now, they're untested. I doubt that they are as good as Russian troops, although even the Russians are starting to have to dig into conscripts who aren't that great. I think that these guys are going to get their nose bloodied. And to be honest with you, I think NATO is getting a bit tired of this. And I think you will see NATO go a little more, I wouldn't say all in. They're not going to send troops. But I wouldn't be the least bit surprised now if you see greater NATO support. The frontline states, countries like Lithuania, countries like Poland, countries like Romania, are getting tired of the implied and very open threats that the Russians are making about you're next. And they want to make sure that the Ukrainians win. By the way, I didn't mean to do that.
No, I know what you're talking about.
But I think that NATO's patience is running short on this. And to be honest with you, what I would do if I were the Ukrainian government, look, my understanding is they're already setting up speakers near where they think the North Koreans are, just like they have on the DMZ, and they want to broadcast propaganda and basically say, this guy that you're fighting for in North Korea, Kim, the guy is keeping the money. You're being told that your family's going to get money from your service over here. They're not. He's keeping it for himself.
When they're starving, they're still starving. Exactly. Yeah, number one, they're turning their entire agrarian economy to create weapons so they can sell them to Russia at a marked up price. Russia has agreed to supply them with food.
Right.
But what happens when Russia needs that food and you have a country, North Korea, that is in famine constantly, that people are starving, they live behind an iron curtain? What's going to happen then? Because I've seen quite a few reports that have said as you keep moving troops and goods from the west to the east, you're going to put a major burden on North Korea to just feed its own people.
Well, and these soldiers don't know it yet, but they're cannon fodder. They're going to be used just like the Russian conscripts are. And to be honest with you, I think that maybe some of them are starting to catch on to what the game's really all about, because a number of them tried to defect. and they were tracked down. And I have no idea what their fate is, but I have a feeling, that the Ukrainians probably could, through their propaganda, say, look, if you surrender, you'll be well treated here, and if the South Korean government will take you, we'll put you on the next flight to Seoul.
Are they still head to head, or is Ukraine getting an upper hand in this, or who's getting an upper hand?
I think it's sort of asymmetrical in that the Ukrainians have seized some territory actually in Russia. And the Russians have had some progress in Ukraine, but not much. I think it's largely stalemated. South Korea is worried about this, and they have a right to be worried about this, because if these guys get combat training and begin to become a more effective fighting force because of real life action on the ground, that is a threat to South Korea.
And do they have a good military?
South Korea's got a great military, and they got something Ukraine doesn't have, a bilateral defense treaty with the United States. If the North Koreans try their shenanigans from 1950 all over again, it means war with the U.S.
Wow, well, man, oh man, I guess Trump's got a big job ahead, because who else can stop this? Yeah. I think he's the only one that can stop this, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that in the remaining couple minutes we have, 1 minute left, do you think that we'll have any decision on Tuesday night?
No, we're going to be waiting. I think there'll be a tell. Keep your eye open for Pennsylvania.
Well, yeah, okay.
Because they have 19 electoral votes, and if Trump wins Pennsylvania, and he gets the states that we expect he's going to get, he's ahead in polling in.
I think he's ahead in Michigan, isn't he?
I think it was a statistical tie in Michigan.
Arizona,
he's a poll that just came out shows nationally. Trump 49, Harris 46, although that was done by the Daily Mail, which is a sort of right-leaning. Yeah. So among likely voters, which are the people who have a history of voting. The previous poll taken by the Daily Mail showed Harris by 1, so it's been a swing of 4. By the way, 3.6 million people in Georgia have already voted, according to the Secretary of State's office. So that's over half of the state's voters. 40% of people in North Carolina have already voted. Polls show, according to USA Today, polls by Echelon Insights show that polls show a statistical tie in Michigan and Wisconsin. Trump is ahead in Pennsylvania. And they find that Trump is ahead by 6 in Pennsylvania, and the margin of error is 4.5, so it means that he's actually ahead.
Okay, and then that note, we have to go bye-bye. My goodness sakes, I told you all that this was going to set a new speed record. Absolutely wonderful. Thanks for being here. I know you'll be up all Tuesday night, of course. Absolutely. Most of us will. And after being up all night long Monday before a show, I never get any sleep. Anyway, all right, have a good weekend, everybody. RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network. Check it out, and you'll find where the rallies are, and you can see them either on their phone, or if you got a smart TV, you can figure it out. See ya.